Very nice to see you in here. I just want to know about I know that Theresa May will trigger Article 50 after the New Year or some March, end of March, maybe. But it is a lots of consequence in here. People are still thinking, even the Maharashtra community and other community also, they say, what is about it? What's the consequence of this?
Well, I think that's what we're finding out now, is that there are enormous consequences for Brexit. It's the most complicated thing, I think, that the British government has been engaged in probably since the Second World War. And it has consequences for our economy, for our immigration policy, for our trade policy, for things like we were debating in Parliament recently, science and research funding. So it's going to be monumental and affect Britain's place in the world for decades to come.
Yeah. The other thing is WTO, World Trade Organization. At this moment, I've got the independent report in front of me, and they certainly concerned about the partly the same access to the single market. What do you think that Britain will keep the single market, trade movement, or access to the single market?
Well, I think that debate between the balance between access to the single market and the free movement of people is at the heart of the Brexit negotiations. When I asked David Davis about that back in September, he said no, that wasn't the issue. But clearly, over the last few months, we've seen that is going to be critical. And access to the single market means that British companies, which includes many are run by British Bangladeshis,
and other communities,
absolutely, have access to 500 million people without tariffs, without barriers, without regulations. And that could all change if we don't negotiate some form of access, also access to the customs union. But yes, people are concerned about immigration. They want the British government to have a controlled immigration policy, but that means we still rely on people coming here. We want to have free and open borders, so we know we can have the brightest and the best from around the world, including again many from Bangladesh coming to live here.
Yeah, and the other thing is I heard the news something from the Bankers Association, and they said even the Bank of Nomura and the Japanese bank, the Mitsubishi also leaves. They will planning to leave the Britain. Is just the consequence of Brexit?
I think it is certainly something that overseas banks, we in London have more, I think, Japanese banks than they have in Tokyo.
Even the 140,000 people working in this sector.
And I think when we talk about the City of London, it's not just about literally the city. It's about all the people who are employed in financial services around the UK. There are many people employed, even in my own constituency, there are hundreds of people employed by different banks, doing different roles, and so this is about people's jobs. And yes, I think the whole thing about Brexit is what message does it send to the rest of the world? So for international businesses, obviously they are looking and saying, well actually, London and the city is not part of the single market. Do we then need to move our headquarters and our banks so we then get access to the EU single market from another European capital city?
Yeah, the other thing is, you were the Remainer actually.
Yes.
And on the referendum, you actually campaigned the Remainer. Is it contradiction about just after the referendum, you were the Brexit campaigner now?
Well, I think we're all past the 23rd of June.
Yeah.
I think we all have to accept that the UK is going to be leaving the European Union. That's what a democratic referendum, 17 million people voted for. But I think it's incumbent on members of Parliament to represent not just those who want to leave, but those who want to remain as well. And to remember we've got the right deal.
And I have come a report from the ITV, that's the NICKY Brexit plan tracked out of the government. Can you say like...
Well, it's very important. I think what people are looking for now, David Davis, the Brexit Secretary, has said will be published hopefully by February, is a proper plan from the government about how they're going to conduct the negotiations. What they think is most important, so things like single market, free movement of people, security issues, other things that haven't been talked about, access to science and research funding, all of that. What is the UK government aiming for? Now, what Parliament is not looking for is the detail. Because that would be obviously difficult then for those engaged in the negotiations.
But Theresa May still not published the details of Brexit.
Well, we haven't had that plan yet, and I think that's what the Parliament voted for just over 2 weeks ago. The MPs, over 400 MPs, voted for there to be a plan that could then be scrutinised by Parliament. And it's incumbent as MPs, we've got to ask questions on behalf of our constituents, regardless of their views, about making sure we get the best possible deal.
And finally, the Nicola Sturgeon threatens new independence if Scotland forced out of single market.
Yeah, well, I think people shouldn't underestimate, as I say, the consequences and the seriousness of the vote on the 23rd of June. I don't know, I'm not involved in Scottish politics. From what I hear from talking to people, I don't detect lots of public interest in having a second independence referendum. But there's no doubt that Scotland voted overwhelmingly to remain, and that for them access to the single market is incredibly important. And so I think we have got years of this to run and to see what's going to happen.
Thank you very much. And the last of all, actually, Friends of Bangladesh, will you say anything for them?
Well, it's a pleasure. I'm a patron of the Conservative Friends of Bangladesh, and they are a wonderful organisation. I'd like to say thank you to everybody from the community who is involved with them, and to say that we want more people from the Bangladeshi community to come forward and stand for public office, whether it's as school governors or to be councillors or to be members of parliament. We really want there to be more Bush Bangladeshis, or Bangladeshi generally, in our parliament and our public life.
Including the councillor. The tower, especially the Tower Council, Conservative has no councillor here.
Well, I think sometimes it's quite difficult. There are some areas where there have been certain parties dominant for a long time. But actually, in East London, there are lots of Conservatives out there active. So if people do feel watching this, they'd like to get involved, like to make a difference, then please do join the Conservative Friends of Bangladesh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
বিগত 23শে জুনের গণভোটে ব্রিটেনের পার্লামেন্টের প্রভাবশালী এমপি এডুকেশন সেক্রেটারি নিকি মরগান ছিলেন রিমেইন ক্যাম্পেনের পক্ষে। ব্রিটেনের জনগণ যখন ব্রেক্সিটের পক্ষে রায় দিয়ে দেন, গণতন্ত্রের প্রতি শ্রদ্ধা জানিয়ে প্রভাবশালী কনজারভেটিভের এমপি নিকি মরগান ব্রেক্সিটের পক্ষে এখন সোচ্চার। তিনি মনে করেন ব্রিটিশ পার্লামেন্টের এমপিরা ভোটের মাধ্যমে তাদের মতামত দিয়ে টেরিজা মের ব্রেক্সিট প্ল্যান, সিঙ্গেল মার্কেটে অ্যাক্সেস আর ফ্রি মুভমেন্টের উপর সব কিছুই নির্ভর করবে ব্রিটেনের আগামী দিনের ভবিষ্যৎ। হাউস অফ কমন্স থেকে ক্যামেরাম্যান আলী রেজা খানকে সাথে নিয়ে সৈয়দ শাহ সেলিম আহমেদ, চ্যানেল আই।